Thank you everybody for your patience while we were waiting for a few more to join. It looks like we're a little light on the water today, so if you have any questions, all feel free to pop them into the text chat, and I'll let David and Sam know, and as I'm the house mediator today. So today we've got Sam Langridge with us from Skooler. We've got Sam Godbeer from Overt Software Solutions. I'll pass over to David to introduce.
Thanks, Helena. So as was mentioned, my name is David Langridge. I look after the alliances and market development at Skooler, and my pleasure to give you a walk through the initial part of the presentation today, which is talking about mConnect. So initially, we're going to introduce obviously ourselves, Skooler, and Overt Software, really covering who we are, why we're on this call today with you, and also to those that are listening to the recording, why we launched mConnect, how we've done this and why we've done this with Microsoft, focusing on a number of key areas to improve the overall management of Moodle and Teams together, because that's what mConnect's all about. Giving you a look through the system itself, so you can then see from an education side, teaching and learning type side as to how that actually works within the environment, but also then covering off the IT aspect of it as to how you can manage those Moodle and Teams materials to ensure that it works for you within your setting. And then Overt Software will go through 5 key points with regards to upgrading to Moodle 4.1, and then there's a Q&A and of course special offer. So I'll just let Sam cover off the Overt piece initially, and then I'll dive in and give you an overview of Skooler and then talk through the mConnect solution. Over to you, Sam.
Yeah, thank you very much, David. So yeah, hello everyone. My name is Samuel Godby here, and I am the VLE Operations Manager at Overt Software Solutions. So for our part of the webinar, we plan to keep things quite short, as we know it's a very busy time of year for staff at the start of the academic year. So accordingly, as David has mentioned, we're going to be covering some tips on what you can do to ensure your Moodle continues to run smoothly in 2023, which we'll be covering later on in this webinar. So if I just briefly go through just who we are at Overt Software, if you're not familiar already. We were co-founded in 2010. We have a strong foundation in the education sector, having led and been key contributors on innovative projects with JISC. Our HQ is based in the UK with experienced technical support teams located in both the UK and recently Indonesia. As a company, we have the privilege of providing our support services nationally and internationally. We're also specialists in the areas of learning management systems, plugin development, federated access, single sign-on, and security functions such as multi-factor authentication. You might have support contracts with us, or there might be something you'll be interested in looking at. We have an ethos of exceptional services, honest expert advice, hence the name Overt, and we can be clearly seen for our worldwide community involvement. And finally, we're also proud to share that we've earned our Cyber Essentials Plus and ISO accreditations to ensure that we're following best security practice. So if I pass it back to David.
Thank you very much, Sam. And we'll carry on with the presentation from Skooler's perspective. So as mentioned, I'm from Skooler. We've been focused on the education sector, and we're actually founded in Norway. That's the headquarters of Skooler. I know I don't sound overly Norwegian because I'm not. I'm based in the UK and run the UK operation, as well as the market development for Skooler. We develop a number of different solutions. We've got primarily 3 different solutions. One focuses on the primary and secondary sector. One focuses, which is the mConnect product, on anything to do with Moodle and connecting that to Teams. And then the third solution works across all education settings and also commercial. We help by connecting teachers and students to support their whole collaboration using technology, but specifically how people want to work. And hopefully you'll see that in the presentation today. As I've already mentioned, we've got offices in Norway, UK, plus also US and Sweden. And we are, of course, supporting customers worldwide. There is a significant demand in the market. Collaboration is very much here to stay. Organizations very much are looking for solutions to help them in those managing that transformation and how they work with the whole teaching and learning aspect as well as the collaboration aspect, not just in the short term but also long term as well. The beauty with this solution is it does keep all of your investments in Moodle. We're not scrapping Moodle in any way, shape or form. This is very much using the power of Moodle and the power of Teams and moving them together. More than 10,000 learning institutions have downloaded mConnect since April 2020. You'll be aware that March, April 2020 was a fairly significant time, which is when we launched mConnect, and to say it was timely, just one of those curious happenstances, moments, I suppose, to a certain extent, that we'd been talking to Microsoft about this solution. And it was launched in April 2020 when obviously the whole pandemic kicked off and everyone went into an online method. And this obviously helped immensely. And so an awful lot of people downloaded and started to use the mConnect solution from that time and are still continuing to use it today. We are fully supported by Microsoft. I mentioned that this was done jointly with Microsoft. They helped fund the production of this. They realized in late 2019 that there was a hole, if you like. They built a solution themselves to actually connect Moodle with Teams, but it was very much something that had gone into maintenance mode, didn't really deliver on what they were looking for. And given our work with Microsoft and work with Teams, they came to us and approached us to write this solution, and hence mConnect was born. And we talk to them on a regular basis about further enhancements, etc., to the solution. We've got lots of users, as I mentioned, all across the globe, large and small, further education colleges, higher education institutions, some schools even. Anyone that uses Moodle can obviously use this solution very, very easily. Most people today very much are working in two disconnected systems for learning. So you've got your Moodle environment, you've got your Teams environment, and the two aren't connected. What this does is to actually connect them together because it is better, we would suggest, working in a connected way, and hopefully you'll agree. So essentially what this is doing is it's bringing a screen of Moodle within the Teams environment. So Moodle is still very much the king in this, in as much that you use Moodle to generate the Teams from your Moodle courses, etc. You're in control as to which ones it creates. It doesn't just do it blanket. You decide which ones you want to turn into Teams, and then once you've done that, you operate those Moodle courses within the Teams environment. And so you've got the benefits of both worlds. All the benefits of Moodle, because you're just running Moodle within an iframe screen within Teams, and of course all the Teams capability that you've got. And I'll show you this working in a moment. So 4 key areas that we were focusing on. Very much wanted this one workspace. So not having to switch between 2 screens and actually running it all in one place so that it's very easy to drive. So you've got access to all your Moodle courses, all the topics, the assignments, calendars, etc. And they're all viewed within the Teams channel relevant to that Moodle course. As I said, it creates the Teams channel from that particular Moodle course, bringing across all the students and lecturers, professors, etc. Into that to then give you this combined view. So you really drive an improvement around the whole communication side, productivity and teamwork by integrating those tools, and gives you the full power of Microsoft Teams and the benefit of all the good pedagogical aspects that you get within Moodle. There's a really great set of controls, and I'll be running through these in the demonstration in a moment. So it saves you time and in particular headaches to actually manage those courses, manage those elements, those Teams channels or tabs within Teams, depends on how you've got it set up, and it will create those courses at your behest, and with the and it ticks a number of different boxes, so you haven't got to go through and do a lot of management. A lot of it's taken care of in the initial setup. And of course, simplified sign-on. So once you're logged into Teams, gives you automatic access into the Moodle system as well. So in today's demo, we'll cover so how to manage that integration, how to connect those existing teams, how to create new teams, and then a view as to what it actually looks like within the system itself, so you can then see how that operates. Getting ahead of myself. So without further ado, let me show you what it actually looks like. So hopefully you can still see my screen and everything is clear. This is essentially what it looks like. So what I've got in front of me, or in front of you, is my standard Moodle dashboard. So whatever your Moodle dashboard is today, it's then replicated within the system. If I switch screens, so if I go, you'll notice my last tab here is I've logged into my Moodle system. So there's my standard Moodle dashboard, and it looks exactly the same as this one, but it's just running within Teams. So all we do is we replicate it. So if you're running a particular theme in Moodle, that is just replicated because you're just running Moodle as an iframe within Teams itself. And as I said, later on in the demonstration, I'll show you how the system itself is generated, so how you create your Teams environments from your Moodle courses, so it keeps everything together. So as you can see, of course, being Norwegian, one of the courses we've got here is the History of the Vikings. Clicking on the History of the Vikings goes into our system, and I've got full access to all of my items as you would expect. I can go obviously back to my dashboard. I can access the feed. So this is the standard Moodle feed. And I can then go and create teams, etc. from within here if I want to. But I'll leave that Teams creation when I go through the other area. So essentially, this is really it. It's running within Teams. You've got your standard Moodle course running within Teams with full access to anything you want to. There's nothing to stop you running it natively within Moodle as well if you want to. It doesn't affect anything. It's just what we're doing is if you're trying to improve on the whole collaboration piece within the institution, then Teams is the way of doing that. And this will then give you all the benefits of that. Just you're running Moodle within Teams itself. So if I go into the setup, just so you can see how the system itself operates. So what we've got here is this is our own Moodle system running within the environment. So you can see here this is showing my setup. So it shows where we're based. The school is based in Norway, and our Microsoft 365 system is here. I've got a number of administrators in the statistics box. Number of Azure users. So this is looking directly at the Azure Active Directory within the institution's Azure system. Number of teams, so it can see the number of teams we've got running, which is 105, and the number of managed teams being 5. Those are the ones that we've got managed by mConnect. So you haven't got to do everything. If you just want to set up a trial or a proof of concept, and you just want to do this for one particular lecturer or one particular faculty, you can then do that very simply, and or a number of different courses in a test environment. You can then do that initially, and then when you're ready, you can go live. So we've got our Microsoft 365 tenant here. I can test my permissions, so I can do all the checks and balances as an administrator. And down here, we've got our Moodle environments. I've currently only got one active. As you can see, I did have another one, but I've deleted that one. But this typically is what we would see in most people's installations. They've got a live environment that they use day to day, and then a test environment. And you can have both those connected. So if you're wanting to try anything, then you've got the ability of doing that very, very simply. I can manage my administrators very simply. As you can see, I've got a number of different administrators here with different role types. So we can then set up permissions as to what those administrators can do. And if I want to retract I'll remove those administrators at any point. Just click on the button, and as you would imagine, they get removed. One of the first exercises that we do with you as part of the setup is explain about the whole user matching exercise. So what you're doing when you're looking at creating your teams from your Moodle courses, you need to understand who the users are. We don't build another database of users. We actually look at the Azure Active Directory within Microsoft 365, look at the Moodle directory within Moodle, and then we match them together. So we provide a synchronization. And if I show you that that structure, so this is a simple cron job that's run on a regular basis. Run, in this case, I've got it set up to run daily. I've got my Azure directory, Active Directory matching field here. So user principal name is matched with username in Moodle. So I can then go through and check, make sure all this works. You've got a number of different options here. It's a drop-down menu. So for you, the mail may be more appropriate, or the ID may be more appropriate. We tend to find that user principal name and username typically works best for most organizations. You can also skip the domain part if that needs to be done. And I can test the configuration. So if I put me in here, just so you can see .com, and it will then come up with my details. So my ID, my user principal name, my mail address, my ID in Moodle, username, email, etc. So we do that user matching exercise, and we can see when the next sync is due, whether the last sync status was a success or a fail. And obviously you can then drill into that if it's failed for some reason. And clicking that button will then do that user matching exercise. I can take a list of all the users in the system, and I can look at that from a users without a Moodle match perspective. If you're trying to find out, has there been a glitch somewhere, as we've not got it matched correctly reason. So I can view those without a Moodle match or match users. And again, I can look at my sync history, so I can see that this is successfully run on a regular basis each of the past however many nights that is there. Once we've done that user matching exercise, we can then do this thing called batch team creator. I'll go through this screen in a moment, so don't worry too much about this. I just want to show you how we actually search and create those particular items. So as you can see here, I'm looking for both team and Moodle courses, but I can just search for teams or just Moodle courses. Depending on what you're wanting to do from this batch creation process, you can obviously select from that. We can base it around categories. So you might have your categories for particular faculties, for example. So you can set that up. And then do I just want to look at active courses, archive courses, or deleted courses? So again, you've got the flexibility there to select depending on the state of those. And then do I want to just look for things that are currently managed or not managed? So again, if you're doing this batch exercise initially, typically it will be looking for stuff that's not managed. I want to show you both, so I'll keep that keep them both active. I'm just going to click on test and search for test, and it then produces me a list of courses. And as you can see here, what we've got here is anyone that's got test in the title. And you've got grayed out symbols as well as nice brightly colored symbols. So as you can see, this first one here is a Moodle course. It's not a team currently. It's not managed by mConnect currently, but it is queued. So in other words, we've actually clicked on this button here to add to the queue, and that's then queued ready to run the batch. Here I've got a team, already a team that's been created, but it's not yet linked to a Moodle course. So if you've been proactive with teams up to this point, and you've got a number of them that notionally are sort of matched to a Moodle course, but not obviously linked, then you can then link that course. And the simple way of doing that is click on link a course. It allows me to then go and select this. So I can search for a particular thing if I want to. It's obviously brought up this one. Click on that, and that will then match those two together. And what it then does, it will do an exercise of checking to make sure that the students list is correct. For example, the lecturers or assistant teachers or whoever is in that system, and it will then do that, and then we'll then manage that going forward. So if a student drops out of a particular course and moves to another course, you'll take them out of Moodle. It then takes them out of that corresponding team and would then add them back into the new corresponding team for them. And we've got one down here towards the bottom of the screen where it's all nice and brightly colored. So in other words, it's an active team, it's an active Moodle course, and it's currently managed by mConnect. And there's a button over on the right here. So if you wanted to archive that, come to the end of the academic year, you want to archive that team, it can then archive it again from this screen. So it tries to keep everything nice and neat and tidy within the administration side to ensure that it's easy to get access to each of the different areas. So I can view my team creation history. So I can view it based on queued, stuff that's in progress, stuff that's failed or succeeded. Again, I can search for specific things if I want to. I can export these as well, should I want to. It'll show you your membership sync history from within this screen as well. And how it actually syncs, it uses this template concept. So you've got the ability, if I show you a new one, so when it creates the team from the Moodle course, you set a number of switches. Those can be based on member settings, messaging settings. So it does all this within the background of the team. And so it means that all these different options, you haven't got to go in and spend a lot of time administering those teams, because it will start and set up all those switches in Teams automatically for you based on your template. And you can have as many templates as you like. So you might have specific things for specific people or specific faculties. You've got the ability of doing that. And then down at the bottom here, you can see, do you want to set co-teachers as owners within Teams? So if you've got multiple teachers on a course, are they all owners of that course? And then how do you want to create your channels from course topics or course groups? Again, a simple checkbox. So it depends on how you've got your Moodle set up and how you want it to create your teams. You can then set up channels from topics or groups. I can also make those group channels private if I want to. And I can then also create tabs within my general channel as well if I want to. Again, lots of different options. And my suggestion is when you set this up in a test environment, then you play with the different switches, see what it does, see how it creates it, and you can then decide what works best for you. And as you can see, we've got a number of different templates here. I've got one without channels, so that just creates tabs for me, or this one creates a course without tabs, just creates channels. It really depends on how you want to use Teams, how it's best. You might have particular policies set up. And then from a summary perspective, the summary screen then shows you again the number of teams, number of managed teams, number of templates we've got within the system. And I can get access to the sync history and the team membership sync, etc., all from this screen should I want to. And I can then see this creation summary as well. So we've run 26 successful creations. And you can see it's a two-step process. So it creates the team for me. So it queues it, then creates it, and then shows you if it's failed for whatever reason. I can click on this to then get access to give me some details as to why it's failed. And then it adds in the team membership, the channels, and the tabs. So it's a two-stage process, and we'll go through that for you. We have got a separate screen if we want to archive stuff. So here I can search and archive from here, and I can also see my archive history, and my my Moodle webhook logs will enable me to look for stuff within that, because obviously it's using the Moodle webhooks to gain access to the system. So that was a quick overview of the system. If I go back to the presentation, any questions at all come in via the chat, Helena?
No, nothing so far. There may be a few at the end.
Yeah, fine. Thanks, Helena. So hopefully you like that. Gave you a good indication as to how the system itself, what it looks like, how you set it up, and it's a very easy process, something that both Overt, who we work very closely with, and ourselves do a lot of, and so we can handhold as much as is required. So some of the key mConnect Plus benefits. There are two versions of mConnect. There's a free version as well as a paid-for version. The free one is basically a trial. It's limited to 1,000 users, 100 teams, and lasts for 30 days. And then you've got your full mConnect Plus, which then gives you full access to support and gives you your yearly license. And so there's lots of things you can not do within the free trial version, but then very simply we can switch that into a full paid-for version, which then gives you full access to all the facilities. So at this point, I'll stop talking and let you listen to a different voice and hand over to Sam.
Thank you very much, David. Yeah, so we're just going to now go through our 5 key points for academic excellence on Moodle. So just things that you can essentially do to keep things running smoothly and that you should be aware of going forward. So if we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, so since we've covered this earlier on, I'll just serve this as a quick refresher. So as a Moodle hosting and support company, Overt have been working with Moodle since 2010. So that's from the perspective of experienced technicians who have worked extensively with Moodle in terms of both advising best practice and dealing with issues when they occur. So this is going to be things that we've picked up from working from our own support portal. So they're going to be very relevant to actual issues that people have encountered. So that's just something that I think would be useful to sort of understand our perspective on things. So if we move on to our first slide. Yeah, so if you've not already done so, you should strongly consider upgrading to Moodle 4.1, or at least plan for how you're going to be carrying that in the near future. So if you attended our previous webinar, you're probably very aware of this, or as an Overt company customer, you will have seen emails about this. So it's something that we've been stressing a lot. And the primary reason for that is that Moodle 3.9, which is the current long-term supported version of Moodle, will be end of life from December the 8th, which means there will be no further security patches or updates. So obviously now, with the academic year for most starting, if you do want to upgrade to Moodle 4.1, you're going to need to look at half-term periods and the testing that might be leading up to those. I understand right now it might be very busy, but maybe later on in September, that's something that you could look at. Possibly you could look for arranging this around, say, Christmas. And this could be applicable to those of you who are also not following the academic timetable as closely, such as if you're adult training providers or such like. It should be said that end of life does not immediately mean Moodle will be at risk when that comes about. But the longer that you spend on Moodle 3.0 when it is out of support, the more risk that's going to be involved and the more troublesome upgrading will likely become, since plugins will become older. There'll be more and more changes made between the version of Moodle you're on and the latest version. So we would say from experience.
Yeah, you're cutting out again, Sam. It sounds like you've got an issue with that microphone.
Hello?
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, I'd say it's very important that you keep up with the long-term support version of Moodle, as the more troublesome grading will become, the further behind you fall behind the latest version. With that said, it's also strongly advised to test Moodle in development environment, especially as moving forward, it's likely that the backing software for your Moodle version is going to change. So you might need to upgrade to a newer version of PHP or a newer version of MariaDB or Postgres, depending on what database you're using. So as always, as we'd always advise, testing is vital to avoid any nasty surprises. And this is applicable to both the Moodle itself, the plugins it's using, and also the...
Cut out again, Sam.
If we move on to our next slide. So an important area that we feel should be monitored sort of from the VLE's perspective are the following. So we have the automated course backup reports. So these can be found as an administrator from the site administration tab, reports, and then backups. So this indicates if you have any automated course backups failing or being skipped. So this should be checked regularly for any unexpected behavior to avoid missing backups for when they are needed. The last thing you want when you have an issue with a course that needs to be restored is to find out, oh no, the course backups have been failing and we weren't aware because we weren't checking the report. So that's an important report to at least check regularly just to stay on top of your course backups. And along the same lines, of course, there is the settings for the course backups themselves. So those can be found at site administration, courses, backups, and then automated backup setup. So it is, of course, strongly advised to enable that except under extenuating circumstances where perhaps you don't have enough disk space or you have some other alternative method of providing backups. And you should also always consider the implications of your current backup settings in terms of retention versus frequency. Ourselves, we advise always backing up to a specified directory for automated backups directly to the server that you're on rather than to the course itself, since if the course is deleted or lost in some way, that might make the backup impossible to get to, which will defeat the purpose of the backup. So we'd always advise backing up to a specified directory, even though that does mean that you'll need to get to the backups via the backend, but that can be worked around by using repositories. And sort of in general, alternative backup approaches will likely not be as convenient as course backups. So for example, if you use vSphere or snapshots of some kind, that's likely to be disruptive to the entire Moodle. With course backups, it's just the specific course. So if there's a course that has something go wrong with it, you can restore that without it being disruptive to the rest of the site in any way. And finally, we also have the scheduled tasks and task logs. So that'll be in site administration, server tasks, and then scheduled tasks. So on this page, essentially, you'll want to check if there are multiple tasks stuck on ASAP or that have a high value for their fail delay value. In either case, that likely indicates issues with those tasks. So if you have scheduled tasks that are failing, that can cause issues such as enrollments not going through or emails not being sent out as expected. It's an important area to also regularly check in on and make sure that things are working properly in there. As it may be related to that area not working properly. So from there, if you find that out, you can contact your support team and then investigate from there and see what the likely causes are. So we move on to our next slide. So there are also some other notable settings to be aware of going forward into the academic year. So one of these is the keep logs for setting. So that's in site administration, plugins, login, and standard log. So this determines how long logs are kept for Moodle. So these are logs that are used to determine what's displayed in your course reports and your site administration reports. So essentially it's the big logs that you might be familiar with whenever you need to investigate something happening that needs to be tracked. The issue with setting this value too high in terms of retention is that the logs table on Moodle can become very, very large. And in cases where, say, you need to restore the Moodle database or even backing up the database in the first place, the size of that table can actually cause issues in itself. Restoring a Moodle may take a few hours, but restoring one of a huge logs table that's several gig in size, and in some cases in experience, I found that the logs table itself will be several times larger than the other tables on Moodle. That can massively increase the amount of time that it takes to do a restore. So it should never be set to the never setting unless there is some mitigating process that you have to keep the logs table under control, as that's something that I found a few times, is that when that is set to never, you will eventually have an unworkable logs table. So that's best kept on top of and kept to a reasonable number of years, or ideally shorter than that. Common setting for that is usually about 3 years. So look, moving on from that, we also have some newer functionality in Moodle now. So there's the asynchronous course backups and restores functionality. So that can be found in site administration, courses, backup, whilst carrying out a backup or course restore. Generally, that's very useful. It's a new feature. There's few problems with it, but it can cause performance issues if you have many different users doing that at once. So that's just something to keep in mind, say if you're working with staff collectively to move courses around or do backups or course restores. But generally it's a new helpful feature, since previously if you need to do a course restore, say as a staff member or as an admin, you can't work separately on another task in the same session, since your session will be tied to doing that course backup or restore. Along the same veins, we also have the concurrent scheduled tasks settings. So these can be found in site administration, server tasks, and then tasks processing. So as the name implies, that allows multiple tasks to run at once. Very useful for high performance servers with a busy Moodle that need many tasks to be cleared quickly. Again, referring back to emails being sent out or enrollments not processing quickly enough, turning that value up can ensure that those are processed in good time, but can also potentially be crippling for site performance if it's set too high. So that's something that should be carefully adjusted and increased by small increments. And of course, you can always contact your support team and check with them whether the specification of the server you're on will be can be changed appropriately to deal with having that setting changed. And finally, you also have the user enrollment behavior for external database enrollments. So that can be found in site administration, plugins, enrollments, manage enroll plugins, and then external database settings. So if you use an MIS system or another system that feeds enrollments to Moodle externally, you should definitely be aware of that setting. From experience, we've found that if you have issues where your external MIS link to Moodle disconnects, or if changes are made to that table unexpectedly, it can result in users being unexpectedly enrolled or disabled on Moodle, which of course can be a huge issue when it suddenly happens. You'll have people in a course working as per usual, then the next day something's happened overnight and suddenly people have been unenrolled. It's quite simple to change that setting, and you can simply adjust this so that it keeps the user enrolled even if they're missing from the external table by default. And then whenever you need to, say, do the academic rollover for the next academic year, you can always just set that to then unenroll as needed. But generally speaking, we would strongly advise keeping that set to keep users enrolled, as the other settings will likely cause issues, and definitely not have it set to unenroll. So if we can move on to our next slide. So a newer feature now in Moodle is the recycle bin. So that's found in site administration, plugins, admin tools, and then the recycle bin. So it's very useful for accidental deletions of courses and activities, and it works pretty much as you'd expect based off of the recycle bin, say on Windows. So what that means is you'll need to consider the retention for this against the amount of disk space you have, since of course, when an activity is deleted following the rules of the recycle bin, that will actually remain on your server. So whilst it is useful, it might not be helpful in cases where something has gone wrong within an activity or
Oh, sorry, Sam, we've lost that last sentence.
Did you hear how long the retention time should be?
No, we didn't, sorry.
Okay. So you should consider how long the...
Drop that again, Sam.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can I?
Awesome, thank you. So where was I? Yeah, so you should consider how long the retention time for the recycle bin settings are against the amount of disk space that your server has available. Keeping the value too high can result in disk space being used unnecessarily. So it's best that's keep down to something reasonable, such as say 2 weeks. And also, whilst it's useful, it might not be appropriate for when something occurs to the course that isn't actually an accidental deletion, such as submissions being deleted from an assignment or a course format being broken. So if a course gets messed up, essentially you're going to usually want a course backup rather than to work with the recycle bins. That's something important to keep in mind, that it's not a true replacement for course backups, but it is a more convenient way of being able to restore from an accidental deletion. So I think if we move on to our next slide. So something that you'll want to keep in mind that you might not be immediately aware of is the disk usage that's occurring on your Moodle. So obviously, working from the perspective of say a VLE librarian, you won't likely be immediately aware of the disk usage that your server is using, or the amount of disk space that is available. But there is an issue in that if suddenly disk usage is increased or spikes on your server from, say, files, assignments, submissions, etc., being added to the site, that it can become very inconvenient to expand or migrate your Moodle to a larger server during the academic year. So that's something you want to have avoided. So there are a few ways you can go about stopping that from happening. So the primary way is to try using the configurable reports plugin, sort of at the link given at moodle.org. So then you can write up a query which shows you how much disk usage is being filled on Moodle based off of the course content. So you can see if there are any offending courses that are using up more space than what is necessary. Other plugins include the Edwiser block site monitor or the report course size. So any of those should be easily found via a Google search alternatively. So if you just Google search for configurable reports block Moodle or Edwiser site monitor or report course size, you should be able to find any of those plugins, and they're definitely worth taking a look at, just to help keep on top of any disk usage being used up on your Moodle. You can also try tweaking the max size settings for uploaded files to Moodle to sort of moderate the size of the file staff and students could submit. If that's set to not being restricted, you might have submissions being made by students that are far too big, or videos being added to course resources which use up sort of an amount of space that's not appropriate. Alternatively, you can make use of third-party plugins such as eStream or Big Blue Button, so content is not stored on Moodle itself directly, but is instead embedded. Another choice is to use YouTube to upload videos to there instead, and then embed from YouTube. And also, you may also try tweaking the default file types allowed for assignment submissions to again discourage large media files being used for submissions in favor of just Word documents or PDF files. Also, whilst the automated course backups mentioned earlier are very useful, try not to keep too many copies of those, as keeping more than 2 or 3 is likely to take up more storage space than your current live Moodle data itself, since at that point you're essentially making an entire copy of your Moodle site again. So that's something to keep in mind when adjusting the course backup settings. Increasing that could result in the next day finding out that your server's down because Moodle's filled up completely, which causes it to no longer be able to load properly. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. So if we move on to our next slide. Yep, so I hope you found the points we've gone over helpful so far. And as part of our webinar, we're also offering a free Moodle health check to anybody interested. In this health check, we will be able to cover with you your Moodle 4 readiness, as well as if the environment you're working in has any database vulnerabilities or any other kind of vulnerabilities that might be present, as well as just any sort of configuration issues or potential concerns within the Moodle, such as what we've covered in the previous slides. So thank you for your attention. And I believe we'll be coming around to the Q&A shortly, sort of after some finishing bits of David. So if I hand it over back to David now.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, so really just wanted to cover off special offer we've got if you do take out a one-year agreement as a result of attending this day's session and or listening to the recording and contacting either ourselves or Overt, then you would get an additional month free. So that's 13 months instead of 12. We would, of course, onboard the system for you, stroke with you, which normally costs $500. And then you obviously get your plus benefit straight away. And of course, you get the 30-day money back guarantee. So if there's any issues, then no questions asked, we will do a full refund. So thank you very much for your time. Really just open the floor for any questions, and or if there's any questions that have come in via the chat, Helena.
Oh, no questions have come in via chat so far. If anybody has any questions, please do pop them in the chat now. No, unfortunately, I think we haven't got any questions from today's session. Just to let everybody know that if you do have any questions, feel free to contact us via the emails shared later on or on the slide at this present time. Yes, and I'll pass over to Dave to end this session. So thank you everybody for attending.
Well, thanks very much, Helena. Thank you to Sam, and thank you to you for attending and or listening to the recording of this session. If you've got any further questions, obviously you can reach out to myself, dl@skooler.com, if there's any mConnect specific questions, and of course Sam from an Overt perspective. But thank you again for your kind attention. If you have got any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and hope you have a good rest of your day and a productive and not too stressful back to school, stroke university, stroke college, whatever is appropriate. Thank you very much for your time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Marvelous. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.